right, everyone. Welcome back to episode 3 of the Enter the Geek Matrix podcast. I am your host, Matrix93, followed along with my good friend and cousin, Obi-John Kenobi.
What's going on?
With this episode, man, we had some viewer suggestions on the past episodes, and we decided to kind of jump in and throw in some basics and some knowledge on what it's like to not only play, but get started playing Dungeons & Dragons. I, myself, am a fairly new player to the game. John here got me into it, and he's been my DM, and he's been tremendous in kind of teaching me and showing me how things go and how the game is played, and I've had a lot of fun with it, and this is something we've discussed talking about for a while, and of course we've had viewer suggestions for it also. So I'm going to kind of let John take the reins here and, you know, ask some questions and hopefully give you guys some insights and some information into what it's like to kind of get started and get into playing Dungeons & Dragons.
Hey guys, Obi-John Kenobi. You know, it's such a great game. I'm what you would call a Dungeons & Dragons geek and nerd. You know, as most of us know, a geek is someone who's extremely passionate about something, and a nerd is more of the academic. You get in math and science and all that. And what I love about Dungeons & Dragons is you can do both or one or the other. You don't have to be good at all that. You can be role-playing, which you're really phenomenal at role-playing, by the way.
Well, and that happens to be one of my favorite aspects of it is the amount of creativity that can come along with it, and just the different things you can really do if you put your mind to it and really think about what's going on in game.
Yeah. You it's the only limitations of it are your imaginations. As Matrix said, I'm a DM, a dungeon master. For those of you who don't know what that is, I'm the guy who runs the games, who calculates all the math behind the scenes. I generate the monsters. I create the encounters. I weave this entire story and sometimes characters. Occasionally I do voices, not all the time. I don't always feel like it, you know. But in Dungeons & Dragons, it's always what you don't want to try to force anything of it because it doesn't feel natural when you try to force it.
Right.
And it's always more fun when you're doing what you're comfortable doing. So, you know, it's a very daunting thing to get into Dungeons & Dragons. If you go to your friendly local gaming store, the FLGS as it's affectionately called in the forums, you'll see that there are usually 3 core books. The Player's Handbook, the Monster's Manual, and the Dungeon Master's Guide. They're about $50 each, and they're good sized books.
They're big books.
It's daunting.
Yeah.
So what we intend to do today is kind of show you guys some easier ways into it and how to ease yourself into it without having to spend a large amount of money and that kind of thing. So what you really need to do to get started playing is you're going to need the only thing you really have to buy to start off with is a set of dice.
Right.
Now, if you go to a Adventures League, which a lot of gaming stores host an official Wizards of the Coast Adventures League. This is a sanctioned game from Wizards of the Coast, the owners of Dungeons & Dragons, not the creators, but the owners. And if you go to any one of those, people there will have tons of dice. Dungeons & Dragons players are notorious for hoarding dice, buying more dice than you ever could need.
Now, is that essentially the same concept like when I was a kid, I played Yu-Gi-Oh! And we'd go to certain places where it was like a sanctioned kind of tournament between players doing all of that? Is that generally the same concept as that?
It's exactly the same.
Okay.
And, you know, it's that you do ventures that were passed out from Wizards of the Coast. They're official sanctioned adventures, and it's usually you, and there's a ton of strangers there, and they'll have some designated dungeon masters, and it's a really easy way to get started into it. But you don't want to really walk into there and like have no idea what you're doing, because then there's going to be a lot of time spinning the wheels up trying to get you caught up.
Well, and I'm sure it's kind of like in any kind of sporting, event period. You know, you got people in there who are veterans to the game, and having to bring somebody along and teach them stuff can get kind of irritating for some people if you don't have the patience or the tolerance for it.
Right, and especially if they haven't done like any homework whatsoever.
And that's a big thing. That's something you were gracious enough to do for me, is send me some of those different books and things for me to read through, so that way, even though I still had questions and it was still kind of a struggle for me to get in the groove of things, so to speak, I had that to kind of reference back to and look back on and be like, okay, well, I can do this, I can do that. This is not okay. So.
Right. So yeah, and like I said, you know, really the only thing you need to do to start is just maybe have some dice. It's not entirely necessary, but it's well appreciated, and then pencil and maybe some paper. That's really all you need to bring to your first time. The key thing you want to do is there is what's called the system reference document.
Yeah.
and that is what Wizards of the Coast puts out. It's open source. So it's open license, I mean. It's open license. So they actually allow people to build their own types of tabletop games off of their system using this SDR.
Okay.
And so it's completely free. It's open license. You can go to Wizards of the Coast. We'll put the link for that in the video on YouTube. But you can go there and you can read the basic set of rules. And if you're wanting to get started, it's a very short read. It's not as big as one of the books. It's the same stuff in the book. But it's they've taken a lot of it out,
make it more compact and easier to kind of get through.
Yeah, well, it's also missing some stuff to kind of incentivize you to buy the book. So, there are like a handful of the races that you can choose, and a handful of the classes, and then maybe like one of each of the subclasses.
Okay.
Whereas if you buy the player's handbook, you're going to have more races to choose from, more classes, and more subclasses. So it's really going to increase what you can do. But to get started, all you really need is you just need to pick a basic class and just try it out.
Well, and that's really good for a newcomer too, because there's just so many different combinations of characters you can create and the things they can do, and it can be a lot to look at. I mean, and especially if you're like me, you know, I have an interest in all sorts of different races and subclasses, and I want to create all these characters. So it would be nice to have that one thing where it's like, okay, well, this is kind of a base start to it, and I go and make this character and get it into the game and see what it's really like.
Yeah, and you know that's kind of a common thing amongst D&D players. I've got about 20 different characters I've made that I've never even played. Yeah. You know, and it's funny because as you make more and more, there'll be some that kind of stick out in your mind, and they'll be like your go-tos. Because I have like 3 characters that I switch between, and I'll try new stuff out all the time, but I'll always come back to those 3 because those are the most fun for me to play.
Right.
But so if you read through the SRD, that'll give you kind of a basic understanding of the rules. I will tell you this, if that's even too daunting, and that's much smaller, but even if that's too daunting, all you really need to know going into like an Adventures League is just read your race and your class pages, and that should only be like 5, maybe 6 pages long.
But the ones I've read before were not that long, and being able to have that one that you're kind of focused on, you pick that one and then you get that information and reading that. Only having to remember that is not that difficult,
right?
You know, now of course I would imagine getting into a whole bunch of different characters, because many players I know, especially watching you just enjoy making the characters sometimes.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of other people that enjoy that as well. They make them to not even play them, just to make them.
Yeah.
And so I mean, just having that one where you're like, okay, well, this is all I got to remember and focus on because this is my character, and that makes it a lot easier for a newcomer coming into it.
Absolutely. And character creation can be a bit complex as well, and we've got you covered there too. So if you go to Wizards of the Coast and go to their character sheets, they actually have some pre-generated characters that you can download, and I think they go all the way up to level 15, I want to say, maybe 20.
That was actually a question I had for you, because I took a look at that, and I went and clicked on one. I think it was a High Elf Wizard.
Yes.
And
classic combo.
Classic. Yeah. Well, it caught my eye.
Yeah.
And so I went to go look at it, and of course it downloaded like 10 different files on it.
Yes.
So I was curious if that was different levels or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. So it'll be different levels, and like I said, I think they do it like 1 through 15 maybe.
Yeah.
And then within that there'll be 3 sheets, and then I think they have 3 different kinds of those 3 sheets too.
Oh, okay.
So there's all kinds of variants in there, but really, you can go and download those, and then pretty much just grab any one of them, whatever level you need, and just print them out and take that with you to the Adventures League or whatever game that you've ad hoc'd and managed to bamboozle.
It's not so many pages either, so if you're there and you need to refer back to it, it's not like you're flipping through hundreds of pages trying to find one little detail.
Right.
And it's also, the ones I've looked at, they're pretty easy to navigate.
Yes.
I mean, it's not like it's just a bunch of fine print and you got to read through every bit of it. You're not looking at a contract. Everything's kind of labeled, and it's easy to get exactly where you're trying to go and what you're trying to find.
Absolutely. And you're going to read things in there that you may not know, you may not understand, and don't feel bad about that. When you go for your first game or whatever like that, the Dungeon Master will be there, and they'll be able to help explain what any one of these things are. So just when you go there, to let the Dungeon Master know, hey, I'm a new player. Would you mind going over this character sheet with me so I can kind of understand what I'm doing with it?
Right.
But read it first. Like, even if it doesn't make sense to you, read it first, and that'll streamline a lot of the conversation.
Well, because if it doesn't make sense to you, maybe you're in combat or something, and when your party members or the DM says something, you're like, wait.
Yeah.
That kind of refers back to what I had in there.
Right.
I'm about to wreck this guy.
Yeah. You're reading, you're like, what does advantage for saving throws mean? And then you're in combat and they're like, all right, everybody give me a saving throw. You're like, oh, I have advantage on that.
Ooh, I know that.
So yeah, it comes in really handy. But yeah, if you know, you can Google your local gaming store, find an Adventure League, download the pre-generated characters, read the SRD, maybe print out the class and race sheets, and you're good to go, man. And it's not that difficult to get into. It's very, very easy. The community is generally very open and very accepting because it's such a niche gaming hobby. Well, it started to gain popularity recently due to things like Stranger Things.
Well, and I was been really surprised. As you know, I just graduated with my associates from the community college here in our town, and
congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. But throughout the club I'm in, I would overhear. I've overheard maybe 15 kids in there discussing what I caught on to was Dungeons and Dragons. And these kids, now mind you, I'm 26 years old, so I'm one of the older individuals in there. But these kids are like fresh out of high school, 19, 20 maybe. Yeah. And they're playing it. And I'm like, dude, when I was in high school, nobody was playing this. Dude. So, but it's really cool to see how it's just kind of regaining popularity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like I said, it's all about imagination. I remember, so I started playing when I was in middle school. And I didn't even play Dungeons and Dragons first. I created my own.
Okay.
And I sat down with my buddies. I just took everything I knew. I was really big into Diablo, the first one at the time. Right. And I took everything I knew about video games, everything I knew about RPGs, and what I understood about what D&D was. And I kind of just had everyone play. I was playing Magic the Gathering, so I had a D20 for the life counter. Mm-hmm. And we all just sat around, and I just made stuff up as I went. And I'll be honest with you, half the time that's what the Dungeon Master's doing anyways.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it takes you're like a Tolkien or a George Lucas in that aspect, because you can create this whole world, and then again, you get that kind of God complex because you are over everything.
You get Thanos. Reality can be whatever it wants to be. Yeah. Well, and that's the tough part. You have to, finding a good Dungeon Master is a really difficult thing, especially one to fit your playstyle. So, as you said, you love the role-playing aspect of it, right. the creativity of it. There are some people that just want a battle simulator. Mm-hmm. And all they want to do is have a bounty board with some monsters on it and say, I want that one, and go out and fight it.
Which now, and correct me if I'm wrong, like the party we're in, the one-offs mm-hmm. that we've done one of and you've discussed, that's essentially that right there. You're just kind of jumping into like a dungeon, and you're going basically to the main boss and fighting him, and then it's kind of over with.
Well, so what the one-off I started you guys on is actually a dungeon crawl. Okay. So there's a lot of different aspects of D&D. There is the dungeon crawl. There's the smash and grab, which is basically it's the one-off. Like you go in there, you smash a bad guy, and you grab the goods and get out.
Get the loot and get out. Yeah.
Right. That's a smash and grab. Then you have the exploration where you're like exploring a vast wilderness and.
Okay, so there's different ways you can do like a singular session like that kind of.
Right.
Doesn't have to be the whole drawn out story from say one of the books.
Exactly, and well, with the campaign, which is what you call a multi-session adventure, mm-hmm. you're trying to work all of those elements into it. So with a really good campaign, you're going to have some exploration in it. You're going to have some dungeon crawls. You're going to have a few smash and grabs, and you're going to have maybe some political intrigue in there, where you're going to have to talk to some nobility and try to convince them to do something.
Well, and that's from my perspective, that's the heart of the game. So for somebody coming into a new, it'd be nice to do maybe a one-off or something. Kind of get acclimated to how the game works.
Yeah.
But the real heart of it is getting in there and living this fantasy life in this fantasy realm, and the world is what you make it at that point, per the Dungeon Master, of course. Yeah. But I mean, and that's something that I love so much about it is the role playing.
Right.
I mean, any video game you get, whether it's an MMO, an action adventure, RPG, whatever the case may be, you're still kind of set.
Yeah.
To what you have, even in something say like Elder Scrolls Online. I mean, you create this character, but you're creating that class and everything. And then you're kind of set to what the world has.
Yeah.
Whereas even though you're in this campaign in D&D, you can create your character, you get your race and your subclass, but you can still create this even further backstory.
Oh yeah.
Into your character and really make it your own.
Yeah.
And you can literally live out this entirely new fantasy life,
right.
which I think is what people look for in anything related to Geek.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's all it is. You're wanting to live in this other world, this other life, because it's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I love so much about it is the creativity that's involved in it.
Yeah.
I mean, because even say, for instance, like Skyrim, you're the Dragonborn. I mean, that you are. You can go into different groups and things like that, but that's what you are.
I'm gonna blow your mind here for a minute. I play Skyrim the same way I play D&D. I make the character and I do this whole backstory and I play the game as that character would. I've even played the game as someone who isn't the Dragonborn.
So then it's not even necessarily trying to beat the game at that point. It's just playing it based off of what you want to play.
It's an open free world.
Yeah.
I do whatever I want to do. I made a Vigilant of Stendar who's basically a paladin, and he wasn't the Dragonborn, so I never used any of my Dragonborn abilities. I did everything a Vigilant of Stendar would do. I hunted down Daedra. Like I played the game how I thought that character would play.
Okay.
So but again, that's what people want. But it's still, you're still locked in with, even with playing Skyrim like that, you only have limited choices.
Right.
Whereas in Dungeons and Dragons, you're only limited by your imagination. You can literally do anything that is plausible.
Right.
You can't say
for the DM.
You can't say I'm not going to jump 50 feet for no reason. Like, you have to have a reason for why you're doing it. But it's you have that flexibility to think outside the box. One of the greatest things about being a dungeon master is when you create this encounter for your players, and you've worked out in your mind like all the different ways you think they could solve it, all the different ways you've kind of insulated against how they can work around it, and then you're in the middle of it, and one player has that eureka moment, and they come up with something that just completely overrides everything and ends the session right there, and you're like, well, it sucks, it's over already, but damn, that's a good idea. Yeah. I'm going to let you do it.
Well, and I kind of felt like that in that one session we had where one of our party members got stuck in the fence, and it just so happened.
That's one of my favorite moments, by the way.
It was really great because we had just started too, and I was really fresh into it. But so one of our party members got stuck in this fence trying to break into this boatyard, and he was stuck at the fence, and the police caught him, and so he was in jail. And so other party members were trying to figure out how to get him out of there, and we were sitting there talking, bickering back and forth, and finally it dawned on me. Well, the boatyard's right beside a tavern. Maybe we could just convince the police that he was drunk and fell through the fence, considering that his character was a giant turtle. And of course it worked, and we got him out and went about our merry way.
It was brilliant. I liked it. It was a really good solution to that.
And you can't get that creative in Skyrim.
No, you can't.
No, so I mean, and that was just that really right there, because I was very apprehensive at first. I wanted to play. I was very apprehensive about getting into it because it's a whole new concept for me, and I've never done it. And of course, going and playing with people who are kind of seasoned can be intimidating.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to step on toes or irritate anyone or prolong what doesn't need to be prolonged.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so that moment right there was like, okay, I'm in the right spot.
Yeah.
This is good.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay, so, and you bring up a very big point. So a lot of times players do feel intimidated about stepping on toes or anything like that. So one of the biggest things, one of the most well-known celebrity dungeon masters right now is Matt Mercer. He hosts Critical Role, which is a very popular streaming.
I think I've watched that before. Yeah,
it's very, very popular. I personally love Acquisitions Inc., but it's Will Wheaton's a guest star on it.
Well, that's
it's hilarious, dude. But Matt Mercer is doing it with a bunch of voice actors. And one of the things he suggests for players to kind of get more out of your game and to help synergize with the other players is there's a concept of improv called yes and. And so whenever the DM or another player asks you something, do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? If it's not quite what you want to do, instead of saying no, say yes and. So, do you want to go to the tavern? Well, you don't want to go to the tavern, but you can say, well, yes and can we stop by the equipment shop on the way?
Right.
And that way you're kind of working together and synergizing with each other. There's also a concept, and this applies more to Dungeon Masters, but sometimes to players, if there's really something you don't want to do, it's called no but. And it's, you say no, but you offer another solution of something that you would rather do.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of go back and forth with that. So the yes and the no but really help keep the story and the dialogue going and help keep pushing everything forward. Instead of just saying, do you want to go to the tavern? No. Where the hell do we go from there?
Yeah, we're just going to stand here for the rest of the night?
So yeah, that's one of the biggest things. If you don't want to step on toes, just remember yes and. It's okay to be a yes man in D&D.
Right.
Because you're just trying to roll the story. All D&D is just collective storytelling. You're all telling the story and you're telling it together. And a lot of dungeon masters tend to forget that too, because the dungeon masters get a story in their mind, and it's the God complex. You're in control of this world, and you have a story in your mind that you're trying to lead to, and your players kind of start to alter that. And the dungeon master will start to railroad the players.
Well, and it's kind of like, as a dungeon master, and correct me if I'm wrong, but as a DM, you created that for me.
Correct.
For me to play in.
Yes.
You are over here like God, but you already created your earth. Let me live on it.
Right.
And then that's what it is.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of it is just getting used to the improvisation. You know? You've just got to learn how to go with the flow. But yeah, that's if you're feeling like you don't want to step on toes, just remember yes and.
All right.
You know, and that should kind of alleviate a lot of it.
Okay. Well, and now for newcomers, what if they say can't find or don't know where to go to for these sanctioned kind of games? You know, IRL. What are some other options they have?
Well, so we play actually with two of my buddies that I was in the military with, and they live in Ohio. And we play on a website called Roll20.net.
Yeah.
And if you set up an account, then you can set up the game, and it has great tools for being able to set up a really good game. And, you know, there's also Fantasy Grounds is another website, and also Tabletop Simulator in Steam.
Okay.
The Tabletop Simulator is really cool because it's 3D. So
really?
we play in Roll20. In Roll20, everything's 2D. It's a flat surface. You know, you can put like art on there, and you can do a lot of cool stuff in it. But Tabletop Simulator on Steam is 3-dimensional, so you can create this 3-dimensional setting and actually have height. And
at that point, you're making a video game.
Almost,
yeah.
But I mean, I've seen some videos of people playing on Tabletop Simulator. It's amazing. So it's really cool. Then there's also a game that came out not too long ago called Divinity Original Sin 2.
Okay.
And they introduced I can't remember what the mode is called, but it's basically a Dungeon Master mode. And what you can do as a player in Divinity Original Sin 2 is you can set up this entire world, this entire encounter, and then 4 other players can come in, and they'll play, and then you can actually set up like little gates for skill checks or choices and all this stuff all through. So you can do a whole campaign in that too.
Huh.
So there's a lot of good choices out there.
Okay. Now, and say if someone was wanting to try and find people to play with, as opposed to you know, going to the place or something, are there any kind of forums or discussion boards or anything like that people can get onto that could potentially help them find some like-minded individuals to play with?
Oh man, there's all kinds. You can find Facebook groups. You can find there's a looking for group in Roll20. You know, there's all kinds of things. You can do it. I think Tabletop Simulator actually has a chat and looking for group function within itself as well. You know, basically just you could type into whatever your favorite search engine is, Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition or whatever edition you want to play, LFG, and I guarantee you there will be tons of returns of forums, how-tos, and all kinds of stuff of how to find more people who want to play, especially if you can't find enough people who want to play. The hardest thing that it's going to be for anyone who is looking for people to play with is finding a dungeon master.
Okay.
Because that's a job, that's a role that not a lot of people are very willing to step into because you feel like you're not ready yet. But I'll go ahead and tell you, you'll never feel like that.
As a DM?
You'll never feel like you're ready to be a DM. And even as a DM, you'll never feel like you're as good of a DM as you could be.
It's kind of just getting in there and getting your feet wet. And
basically, get in there, get your hands dirty. Even if it's your first time. I've seen people, the first time they played, they dungeon mastered because nobody else would.
Really?
Yeah. And it's doable. And like I said, most of the time, you're just going to be making it up. But the ones who dungeon master or the first time are usually the ones who have read the books and all that stuff. But yeah, I was playing, like I said, my first game I made up and I dungeon mastered it.
Yeah.
My very first game I ever played, and it wasn't even Dungeons & Dragons. I just made it up on the top of my head. And then I played a few games, and I played for maybe 4 or 5 months before I took up dungeon mastering.
Okay. Now, and that was something I was going to ask. As a seasoned player, is there a, say, particular amount of time you would recommend someone maybe just being a player before dabbling into DMing, or?
Okay, so the answer I want to give you as a forever DM is as long as you can.
Regrets.
there is a thing called a forever DM, and you know, if you become a DM and you're good at it, then people are going to want you to dungeon master all the time. And you know, it's fun, it's rewarding, it's very rewarding. I love dungeon mastering. But it's also fun to be a player. As far as getting the knowledge of it, I would say honestly you really only need about maybe 12 hours of play.
Yeah.
Enough to be able to have maybe like 1 or 2 combat encounters to see how that kind of runs. just to get the cadence of it, like the turn order and all that stuff. Maybe a couple social interactions and a little bit of exploration on a map. And once you've kind of experienced those 3 things, then you'll be fine to Dungeon Master and just wing it the rest of the way.
So we have a question.
Sure.
Test subject 1993 asks, "What branch of the military did you play D&D in?"
So I was in the United States Army Airborne Infantry.
Funny enough, I know for a fact that test subject is in the Air Force.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah.
I was stationed at Fort Bragg. Yeah, we worked a lot with the Air Force because I was airborne, so we jumped out of airplanes.
Right.
But yeah, I didn't play too much D&D while I was in the Army. Not a lot of people I knew played it. I got back into it when I got out of the Army. Although I did play... we had one game at the end of basic training when we got finished cleaning all of our weapons and everything like that. And we had like one day before graduation. And it was our free day. And I sat and played with a dude... and we just winged the whole thing. I think we flipped a coin for our rolls and stuff like that. Yeah, we were pretty...
roll for your initiative.
Yeah, dude, it was... But yeah, I didn't play much in the Army, but before and after I did, and I play with my Army buddies now.
Okay. Well, and so back to what we were discussing. Roll20, from what you've shown me and what I've seen you do, is actually a really good place for someone to go if they want to dabble into DMing, because there's so much prefab stuff on there. You can just kind of add in.
Yeah, there are a lot of free things in there. Typically, they have a whole paint mechanic, so if you wanted to like draw your own dungeon out with paint and stuff like that, you could. You can also, what I do a lot is I just Google maps.
Yeah.
And I drop a map on there and play it. I'm not streaming it, so I don't have to worry about copyright info or anything like that. But you can also purchase a few great modules. I bought one for like $5, and it had I think it was 3 cave maps with dynamic lighting, which is really cool. I was playing with that some. It was really awesome. And then like 50 monsters to play with and a few pre-generated characters. All for $5.
Was that the one that we played?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, that
the
was
one I
pretty
showed
cool.
you.
It was all dark.
Yeah,
and then,
that's the
awesome.
dynamic lighting. So if each character has a light source, when you move them, like as it goes around the wall, the light will open up and you'll be able to see. And everything.
It was like being in a dungeon. That was really cool. I actually really enjoyed that
Yeah.
because you don't know what's in front of you
right.
at all.
Well, the next session we play for our main campaign, I'm trying to set that up for it. So the map I showed you was our next encounter in our main campaign when you go fight the Necromancer.
Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, we should actually be setting up here soon.
Yeah, we're gonna start up in January.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, now of course we're gonna have everything linked in the video for the different websites, things you can go to kind of help you get started. Now, besides that, do you have any suggestions or tips for anyone when they're first starting out the gameplay itself? What they should know, maybe right offhand, that maybe they couldn't really get to in the reading before they start?
So one thing that you want to do is just make sure that you understand maybe your character's... You don't necessarily have to understand your character's motivation per se, but just make sure you're a motivated character. You know, one of the hardest things about being a DM is you're building this world, you're doing 20 different other things, and then you get the character, or you get the player who made this really cool backstory for a character who's like a greedy mercenary, and you're going to save a bunch of farmers, and the player's like, well, what's my motivation for this? Why would I do this? Are you gonna pay me?
Yeah.
And they're like, we have like 50 gold. Well, why would I do it?
Yeah.
As a DM, that's frustrating. It's not my job as a DM to figure out your motivation for why you want to be in this adventure.
Right.
So you need to figure that out, and you need to figure out why you want to do it and stuff like that. One of my biggest things, I've had a couple players like that, and I've been like, you don't have to.
Well, I think that'd be kind of the same concept. Saying if I was playing with my squad in any first person shooter, and I just really wasn't feeling it, so I wasn't taking shots on enemies or anything. So it's like, why are you here?
Right.
You know, do you even want to play?
Exactly. And you know, and like I said, I had a couple players like that one before, and I was like, you don't have to. Door's right there.
Yeah.
You can stay here in the bar. You can stay here in the tavern while the rest of the people go on an adventure. Yeah. See you later, dude. You know, so that's the biggest thing. Just keep yourself motivated. Don't get overwhelmed. It's okay. I can go ahead and tell you, everyone at that table probably thinks they don't know what the hell they're doing. so you're in good company.
Well, and I know when I was first starting out, it is kind of overwhelming. It really is. I mean, I don't care, how tough or if your nerves aren't bad at all. I mean, especially, I can only imagine starting out in front of people in real life. I was fortunate enough to have a family get me and started, and it was his buddies, so there was still kind of a comfort there, but it was still, that thought, these guys know what they're doing, they've been playing for a while, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm going to do nothing but hold them back, this is going to take forever just to even get to the first encounter of any sorts, they're just going to get pissed off at me, and if you find a good group of people to play with, that is not the case at all.
Absolutely. And a good DM will help speed that along.
Right.
One thing I will say, so if you are feeling a bit apprehensive about joining in, about the role-playing aspect of it, there's some really good, think about some character archetypes that you could play as. Like, okay, so let's say that you're not really comfortable talking in front of a lot of people, right? Well, there's the strong silent type. Totally play the strong silent type, and you don't have to speak much. And then all you got to do, if you play strong silent type, then all you got to do is whenever it's your turn in combat, roll your dice. If you have something you want to say it. Yeah. And
maybe even just when you throw your sword or whatever.
Play a barbarian and just grunt. Yeah. Who cares? And don't feel like you have to be any certain kind of player. Like I said, there's all kinds of different players. There's players who love exploration, players who love the role play and the political intrigue. Players who just are there to roll dice and smash stuff. Mm-hmm. It's okay to be any one of those players, and only do what you feel comfortable doing. Don't feel like you have to do something that you're not comfortable doing.
And the characters themselves, I've come to realize, are not entirely set in stone. It's not like you're picking from 4 different classes. And then whichever one you pick, that's what you are and that's what you have. I mean, there's so much room for creativity in the game.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, for instance, my character, he was mimicked after Goku from Dragon Ball Z. I mean, and essentially he's a monk. He's a human monk, but just with his different abilities and things like that, I'm able to tweak it and play with him to essentially make Goku.
Right.
And that's what's so awesome about it, and not just with him, with any race, with any subclass you pick. I mean, with any backstory you choose, all of that plays into your character, and you can completely and totally build it into who you want it to be. You can make yourself another life.
Exactly.
And that's just the most wonderful thing about Dungeons and Dragons, I think.
Oh, and here's something to remember too, and a lot of people overlook this. You're not walled in when you make this character. Think about it. All through your life, have you been the same person?
No.
We change. We grow. Things happen to us and our perspective changes. It can happen to your character too. If your character starts out as a greedy mercenary, but then for some reason, like in the middle of combat, you save some little girl and it changes your heart, and all of a sudden now you want to be like this lawful good adventurer, that can happen. Right. It's okay. And you know what? That's actually one of the fundamental building blocks of a story, of a narrative, is character progression.
And that's something too that the Dungeon Master doesn't necessarily, within certain parameters, have any kind of say so on. I mean, if you encounter some sort of situation that you could, for all intents and purposes, have changed your mind, your perspective on something, that's on you.
Exactly. I can't tell you who to be.
Yeah, you have the God complex. God cannot tell you. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I mean, and that's what it is. You can be whoever you want to be, and you can change whatever you want to change throughout within reason. There are certain constructs around you.
Right. You're not going to be like, today I'm a Warforged Paladin, and tomorrow I'm a Goblin Monk. Okay.
Little did you know I'm a changeling. So.
Right. But yeah, and I mean, I've played a few characters where I started out playing them one way, and something happened, and I changed the way I played them because of what happened in game. I started out, one of my favorite characters to play is Judge Law, who I modeled after Judge Dredd. And I got this whole backstory.
That's a good one.
Oh, it was so fun. And I got this whole backstory. And he originally started out as just this very brash, overconfident person, where when we were trying to sneak around, he'd yell out, "Why are you sneaking?" And then we get into a fight, or like, we're coming up to a giant's castle, and he's like, "I'm just gonna go knock on the front door." Till one time we got our asses handed to us, and I learned the value of tact and tactics. And so when that happened, he changed from that brash, overconfident person to a hardened, wiser tactician, because he'd been bitten. and he understood the value of taking a step back and thinking for a second. So things can change how you play character, and that's perfectly fine. And it's actually one of the really fun things about role playing.
Well, and what's interesting about that too is it could potentially change you as a, you really.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're just kind of this, shoot first, ask questions last type person, and then you're in this game and you're like, well, maybe in real life, you might start taking a step back and rethinking some situations.
Exactly.
So, I mean, and again, that's what it is. You're creating this character. You're creating another you.
Yes.
Because you're playing this character.
Oh, yeah. You imbue yourself onto every character you make. You can't escape that. Every character you make is
wild card.
Every character you make is gonna have a piece of you in it, even if it's not the whole you. It's gonna be an aspect of you.
Well, and I think that's the case with any game I play. I mean, no matter what genre of game it is, it's me playing it. Yeah, and that's what I put into it. It's just with Dungeons and Dragons, you get a lot more freedom to make it more personal.
Oh yeah. And you can also do the Tyler Durden route, where you make the character everything you want to be.
True,
and that's fun too.
Yeah. Well, was there anything else you wanted to touch base on as far as?
I think we've pretty much covered everything that a new player would need to, and I'm sure if there are ways to reach out to you or me if there are any further questions or anything like that, it'll go up on YouTube, and I try to check the comments on YouTube as well.
Well, and of course, if anybody does have any questions, and I'll repeat this here at the end, my Twitter, Instagram, that's all linked down there below the stream. So if you want to click on that, you want to send me a DM, I'm more than happy to read it. Give me some time to get there to it, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions and try and help you out as much as I can with it. And again, also to as far as the D&D talk, all the websites, things we've discussed, I will link all that under the YouTube videos. So if you're here for the live stream, be sure to go check that out. And without that, I kind of want to talk about the Game Awards.
Dude, it was awesome. There's a lot of world premieres.
Man, I had a great time streaming it. You were in the chat. We had a lot of people in the chat. The chat was lit.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was awesome. Cindy Goodman is one of my favorite people ever. This is actually a high horse moment. I was live tweeting during the event, and it was like the next day, Cindy Goodman liked a tweet that I had tagged her in. Yeah, so I was like, oh, okay. I'm really getting out here now. But how about that new Xbox?
So I play Destiny, and there's a weapon on it called the Warcliffe Coil, and it's basically this rocket launcher that shoots like 20 different rockets at a time. And they said the new skin for the Warcliffe Coil is the Xbox. It has all the holes in the top. But it is exciting, a new iteration of Xbox. That's really cool. I'm excited to see what it can do.
Well, and I really think they didn't pull any punches on it because, the PS5 was kind of announced before the new Xbox. They did the Project Scarlet thing, very vague. Not even vague. There was nothing to it besides that name. And so...
Which we've known about for a while.
Right. And they really need to step the game up to match PlayStation, because PlayStation's already released some of the specs and things that are going to be involved with it. And it's going to be an awesome console, for sure. Right. We don't have any actual real visuals. We have some inside component visuals. But they just, as far as the way it's going to look, we don't know nothing yet. The new Xbox, though, is phenomenal. And I've seen this a lot on Twitter and discussing with people. It looks like a PC tower.
Well, so where we're coming at in gaming now is what a console used to be its own system and its own architecture and its own hardware. And where we've come with gaming now is that they're essentially mini computers,
right?
Mini PCs. And what they're trying to, the market I think that they're aiming for is for people who don't want to spend the money on a gaming PC, but still want that higher level of gaming. So they create this architecture for it that will optimize all of these pieces. But now they're using like the actual like legitimate GPU companies and CPUs and stuff like that.
I mean, it's the same kind of components and parts you would put into a PC with these new consoles,
right? So
and that's awesome, and it's tremendously cheaper.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think the new PlayStation, for instance, is gonna hit $500, maybe $600, whereas even a decent PC, you're looking at maybe $1,400-$1,500, even just for one to do just a base, be able to base run what you want to run. Yeah,
all the new games and stuff like that.
Right.
That's really the market they're shooting for, is to be able to undercut a lot of the gaming PCs and play all of the new games on the market.
Right.
So, and then, not a lot of people have the PC knowledge to soup up their PCs, replace the parts.
Because you got to change them out. Whereas with a console, you just do the update every couple weeks and then bam, you're good to go.
Exactly.
So, I'm not a huge Xbox fan.
Mm-hmm.
I had an Xbox 360, and the only reason was because I'm a huge Gears of War and Halo fan.
Yeah.
Those are two phenomenal gaming franchises. I still love them to death. Truth be told, I might just have to get the new Xbox to play Halo Infinite. I'm gonna wait on that because PS5 is first. You know, I'm a Sony guy at heart, but I'm really excited for that. How about Game of the Year, Sekiro?
You know, it looked awesome. I haven't played it yet, but it's been on my list, and I love that it's kind of it feels like Dark Souls and Samurai.
It is. I haven't personally played it either, but I've watched tons of like streams and gameplay on it, and it looks amazing.
Yeah,
and that's basically what it is: Dark Souls, Samurai style.
Yeah,
and you mix in a little bit of like samurai ninja aspects, swift attacks, you know, leaping from certain places and things like that. The agility aspect that you imagine a ninja or samurai having.
Yeah. So I was never really big on the Souls-esque combat style, but I can see the allure of it. A lot of people love it. The game itself looks absolutely phenomenal, and the environment, the setting, the soundtracks, all amazing. It was a really well-made game. I've always been more of a stylish, fast-paced combat kind of guy, like DMC.
Yeah.
I love Devil May Cry, you know, but
it won soundtrack of the year.
It's such an amazing soundtrack.
It definitely is, yeah.
But yeah, you know, it looks absolutely phenomenal, and I've heard nothing but good things about Sekiro.
Yeah. It looked really well. I remember when it first released, I did watch people who were like immediately streaming it when it was first released, and it looked really good. Unfortunately, you know, I play so many first-person shooters. I don't really have time for it. Which, hopefully, coming towards the beginning of the year, you know, with the release of Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, which I'm super excited about, I'll start making time for more games like that, like I used to play.
Right.
So, but what game coming up are you most excited for? I mean, we had a ton of world premieres and tons of things were shown. I've got a couple.
You know, I'm not gonna lie. I'm wearing. You can barely see the D&D ampersand on my shirt. I'm a huge D&D fan, and they released the Dark Alliance world premiere,
and that was cool. That world premiere was really badass,
dude. It's gonna be it looks like it's gonna be a hack and slash. It looks amazing, and if I'm not mistaken, this is gonna be the first game. Possibly, I think it's the first game where Drizzt Do'Urden is a playable character. Which if you don't know who Drizzt is, he's this huge character amongst R.A. Salvatore novels, and then he branched out into video games.
Which you sent me a link of that, and I breezed through some of it, and I mean he's a character that's been there essentially from the beginning.
But not quite the beginning. He's been there, I want to say, for a long time though. Like characters from the beginning. Now you're going all the way back to Gary Gygax and like the first edition. And stuff. That's a long time ago. But yeah, he's been there for a long time, and he's a very, very well-known, well-loved character. Yeah. He's the complete opposite of everything the Dark Elves are in the lore. So in the lore, the Dark Elves are very like dark, and they're not like what you would consider good. Mm-hmm. But they have their own culture and stuff like that. Right. And so Drizzt is, he was outcast, and he's basically like this really nice, good person who lives in a world of people who generally hate him just because of who he is, a dark elf.
The outcast.
Yeah, he's an outcast.
Yeah.
But he tries to be like this really good person. He has this moral code, and he's such a great character. And to see him being a playable character and it being a hack and slash, I've been waiting for a hack and slash RPG to play for quite some time. Yeah. And it looks like it's going to be amazing. That's the one I looked forward to the most. There was a lot of Magic the Gathering Arena.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff they're releasing in there. Yeah.
And the premiere for Theros Beyond Death, the new set, is absolutely amazing. And that's the new set for Paper Magic, Magic the Gathering Arena, and Magic the Gathering Online. It's just the new set for Magic the Gathering. Yeah. And I loved the Theros block. It's Theros block is essentially Spartan and Athens. And so it's such a cool lore to that world, and I absolutely love it.
Which, by the way, because I've already considered this anyway, and I don't think I've brought it up to you. Maybe in the future we might do a podcast centered around Magic the Gathering.
Dude, I'm down for it, man. Yeah. I've been playing Magic since middle school.
Yeah, because I know a couple viewers and things like that actually play the Magic the Gathering Arena. So we'll see how it goes. I've thought about it. I've considered it, and it's an awesome game to play. It really is. I do enjoy it. I haven't been able to play it as much as I was. Yeah. Hopefully get back into it soon, but we can probably do that. I was really kind of hoping we were I was really upset during the Game Awards when Vin Diesel came out and they didn't show us the trailer for Fast 9.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to show us this game and everything, and then you're going to say something about it, and my heart skipped a beat. I was like, fuck yeah. We're going to get it. Because even as ridiculous as the Fast and Furious movies have gotten, and they have, I'm still a fan.
A movie can be ridiculous and you can still love it. Like, Bad Boys, the franchise, is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I absolutely love it. It's
you
amazing.
can't beat Will Smith and Martin Lawrence together. I mean, come on.
It's so... one of my... A cult classic, personal favorite of mine, is the Escape series with Kurt Russell. Escape from New York and Escape from L.A.
Oh, yeah.
It's so completely over the top and stupid, but oh, man, I love it.
Nothing could ever turn out that way in a million years.
Exactly.
But it's so good.
Exactly. Or Mad Max. Like, it's just so... Yeah. It's okay to love something that's completely over the top. That's part of its charm.
Well, how about that Green Day performance during the Game Awards?
Dude, I have been a fan of Green Day. Well, I was a fan of Green Day way back in the day. About the time of Boulevard of Broken Dreams, I kind of fell off. I wasn't... They're amazing musicians. And I can tell you, a lot of friends of mine that are musicians will tell you their stuff after Broken Boulevard of Broken Dreams, technically, from a technical aspect, is incredible from a musician standpoint.
Yeah.
The things that they're doing with music. I just wasn't a fan of it.
Right.
But I loved that they went back and played their old stuff, and that was absolutely amazing. They're still just as good as they used to be. It was great.
I think I was maybe 11 or 12 years old when American Idiot came out, and I bought that album, and it was the most badass album. It had the best art because it was just all black, and I had that red grenade.
Yeah,
and it was just sweet. It was so simple, but it was badass. And I listened. I don't think there was a single song on that album that I didn't like.
Yeah,
I mean, and they sound just the same. They don't change. And it's not like you hear an artist on the radio, especially a lot of newer artists and stuff, and then you see them live. And it's like you're listening to a different person.
Yeah.
That's that old school music kind of vibe where they were in there just hanging out when they wrote that song in the studio and played it.
Oh, yeah.
There was no weeks coming in and out to try and perfect the song. They got it right that one time, and it was like, all right, we're going to put it on the track.
Yeah. Next song.
Yeah, that was it. I mean, and that was wonderful.
Yeah. One of my first vehicles that had a CD player, I had Dookie, and I would listen to that from cover to cover, and that whole album was amazing.
Yeah. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this podcast.
I did.
I know we had a couple people that were wanting to hear us talk about D&D, and we're curious about it. I've enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoy playing Dungeons and Dragons. I was skeptical at first. Luckily, I have a great DM. So, and
well, thank you.
And it was very easy to to get into it and start figuring it out. Still got a lot to learn.
Oh, yeah. So do I.
But yeah. So this is a never-ending road we're on.
Oh, yeah.
Damn it. Yo, what's up, Trump? How you doing, brother? But guys, be sure, if you have any suggestions for future podcasts or just anything in general, you want to ask any questions, be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. That's all linked down below. Feel free to DM me. Also, be sure to go and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Here soon, this podcast will actually be uploaded to my YouTube channel for anyone else who missed it or wants to go check it out. Again, you can comment down below there if you have any suggestions or anything you'd like to see the both of us discuss and talk about. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, I'm Matrix 93.
I'm Obi-John Kenobi.
All right, you all have a good night.
Later.